liberation front, and I want to thank everyone for joining us here tonight. It's so good to see you all here, and I'm just kind of amazed that we managed to pull this thing off, and all of you showed up. I'm also very glad to be joined by 5 women whose words move and inspire me so much, and I want to say something about the common thread that brings it all together. Andrea Dworkin described the critical means of male oppression of women as the barricade of sexual terrorism. A belief in the urgency of prioritizing this in our politics is probably the single most important dividing line between radical feminism and what you might call liberal feminism. Meaning radical is in root. As a plant rises from its roots, sexist social structures like economic dependency and coercion rise from the root of male violence against women and girls. We can't hope to understand how any system works without understanding the incentives and punishments that guide people's behavior within it. Without understanding the impact on women of male coercion, harassment, and sexual terrorism, you'll forever be left standing around asking questions whose answers should be obvious. Why don't women prosper in male-dominated industries and academic fields? Why don't women simply refuse to cooperate with inappropriate requests that are made of them by men? Why, and this is the perennial favorite, why doesn't she leave him? Why not? The answers to these questions, and many others, are obvious when you understand the incentives and punishments in how people act on a daily basis in a sexist society. It's tempting to pin this one solely on religion, or on this or that institution, or on this or that government. But after many decades watching the track record of secular societies, maybe we can all agree that it's just men. They do this everywhere. They do it in every industry and in every country. They do it in theocracies where they're not supposed to. They do it in liberal democracies and in communist countries, in military dictatorships, and corporations, and charities, and political organizations, and parties that say that they're trying to make the world better for everyone. But from bitter experience, we know that women usually get left out of the everyone category, somehow. In the book, The Body Keeps the Score, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk says, when we are humiliated, we put all of our energy into protecting ourselves, though this looks different for everybody. The sexual harassment, abuse, and climate of coercive threat sustained against women by some men, and then routinely denied by their fellow men, constitutes a permanent climate of humiliation for women. We grow up as girls understanding that we're seen as inferior. By the time we're teens, the sexual humiliation has usually begun. As younger adult women, it becomes the background noise of our lives, and it is denied both by men who don't want to be responsible for dealing with the problem, and by a lot of women who just can't face it. As older women, we often face it still, but without the flattery with which it may have been softened for our younger selves. We're routinely harassed, humiliated, diminished in the eyes of others, and humiliated again by being made to feel completely insane for talking about things that are happening right in the open in front of everyone. After enduring many years of this sort of constant hazing, very learned men have been heard to wonder why women are so neurotic. We are more neurotic, they say, in every country, every industry, everywhere. Why is that? Maybe it's not us. Maybe it's them. For a family-friendly example of how men treat us, take the software industry. The first computers were mainly women mathematicians, that was their job title, who wrote out the equations by hand. They helped break German codes in World War II, calculating artillery trajectories, sending the first men into space, as shown in the movie Hidden Figures. A woman decided that doing all this math every time was a real waste of time. Admiral Grace Hopper wrote the first programming language. She worked out a way that let people give the machine a command in English, and then a compiler would turn that command into math that the machine could understand. Now flash forward a few decades. The men who dominate the industry that they built on top of Grace Hopper's idea can't seem to stop themselves harassing the women who come to work with them. Yet they look at the high turnover of female employees, and somehow they can't connect the dots to their own or their colleagues' behavior. They blame us. They sit in the industry that a woman's invention helped to build, And they wonder if maybe women just aren't very good at software programming. Maybe that's the problem. Or math.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with us in comparison to men. I mean, something wrong with all of us, we're people. Except this. Except we're not believed when we speak the truth about how men commonly treat us, how it affects us, how it hurts us in material ways, and how men as a class profit from devaluing our contributions to civilization and daily life. They benefit from our collaboration, our intelligence, our leadership, our diplomatic skills, everything that we do to keep life tolerable and help it flourish. And then they tell us that it wasn't worth that much after all, often while helping themselves to what should have been our fair share of the benefits. You can see the insincerity of this emotional con job in how they talk about women's words. Oh, they say, women are so much better at talking. And what they mean is, they wish to shut up. And we've all noticed how often we get interrupted when we're in mixed-sex groups. Our ideas are shot down, even if they later repeat them as their own. Objective studies show that men often speak much more than women in mixed-sex groups, but we're constantly misperceived as speaking more. Or, as we all know, too much. And it almost doesn't matter how much. As Mary Beard documented in her tract, Women in Power, the history of Western literature begins with men telling women to shut up, and it continues in that way until the present. If men believed that we were better with words, if they really believed that, all of their favorite orators and novelists and public intellectuals would be women. Because aren't we better at that? But they mock us and they get away with it because they still do have the power to shut us up if they really want to. People laugh today at the prohibition campaigners, who are mainly women, but they campaigned against what was then a culture of excessive alcohol consumption because they were not at the time allowed to speak publicly about what happened when those hard-drinking men got home from the male-only saloons, having spent all of their pay on liquor, and then they took that out on their wives and their children. The only thing those women could complain about was alcohol, which they were allowed to speak against as a corruption of public morals. We should admire their cleverness and their persistence. And we should thank them for finding a way to be heard in the public square at all, finding a way to legitimize our participation in public life, and eventually leading to the vote for all of us. We should hope to find it in ourselves to be as determined as that. And all of this relates to why we can't simply agree to be nice, polite, and obedient, and agree that people can change sex, and agree that sex is a figment of everyone's imaginations, because all of these things will still happen to us on the basis of sex. Men who terrorize us, men who hate us by acting like it's not even happening, they will still know precisely who to treat that way. Because women aren't everyone, and we can't hope to imagine our way out of this situation. So these are the truths of women that I want to hold as self-evident. One, that male harassment against women and girls must end for the sake of our freedom. Two, that we must insist on our rights to speak about the facts of our lives clearly and accurately. And three, that we must insist on ordinary rights to participate in public discourse without fear of coercion or terrorism. An especially offensive example of this problem we face today is that in 2018, Twitter changed their terms of service to forbid the made-up sins of dead naming and misgendering. And then they banned Meghan Murphy for saying about a known male sex predator, "Yeah, it's him." This is hate speech to men who run social media. In 2019, they changed their terms of service again to permit pedophiles to openly discuss their attraction to children and to try to rebrand themselves as minor attracted persons. So men can talk about abusing children on Twitter, but Posey Parker was kicked off and then visited by police for criticizing the castration of a young boy on his 16th birthday. The men who run Twitter aren't alone in finding it more offensive if a woman hurts a man's feelings by speaking the truth than they are over that same man having sexually inappropriate conversations with or about young girls. Women's rights to speak the truth about our lives and what we see going on need to be defended not on the grounds of how nice to be to men, but how good to be to women and girls. So I hope that you will join me in giving a very warm welcome to Dominique Christina. She's a brilliant writer, performer, educator, and activist who speaks with power and precision about women's truths. She holds 4 national titles in the 3 years that she's been competing in slam poetry, including the 2012 Women of the World Slam Champion and the 2011 National Poetry Slam Champion. I'm so honored that she joins us tonight, and I'm very glad to be able to share the experience of listening to her with all of you. Dominique?
How are you? Okay. I'm just going to jump right in because I don't have a ton of time. I don't want to give people the opportunity to be offended and shit. Okay, so let me see. Do I do a disclaimer? Maybe not. Great. Okay. Do I need this? Do I need a microphone? Some of this, okay. My hands are going to have to be free for some of this. We'll see. First one, very quick poem, just to get us in. Sometimes you need to remember how fly you are and how supernatural you are. Real shit, in the midst of all the Twitter skirmishes and all the, online bullying and all the mean inboxes and stuff. I dealt with that last night, but I know how to fight. It's good. So, first one, ain't we something?
Yes.
Ain't we holy like we do?
Yes.
And mighty like we do, and miracle like we do, impossible like we do. Ain't we more than conquerors? Ain't we Lazarus every day? Ain't we too much muchness always and in all ways? Ain't they scared? Ain't they jealous? Ain't we unbothered? Ain't we too big to look down on something as small as envy? Ain't we bulletproof even when we're not? Ain't we unkillable? Don't we resurrect? Don't we mastermind these bodies? Ain't that all the holy you need to look for? Ain't we magic? Ain't we starshine? Ain't we walk on water? Ain't we Moses every day? Always a miracle performed. Ain't that so?
Yeah.
Don't we do it? Ain't we something? Ain't we a dream? Ain't we ancestral? Ain't we branded and sold? Ain't we kidnapped, seized, borrowed, busted, broken, trafficked, sold? Ain't we been bid on? Ain't that ugly?
Yeah.
Ain't we endure? Ain't that pretty? Ain't we something? Ain't we ambition? Ain't we proving it every day? Ain't we bright as blood? Ain't we blood? Ain't we bone? Ain't we kin? Ain't we scars and how they heal? Ain't we warrior? Ain't we whirlwind? Ain't we hurricane every chain? No wonder the levees break. No wonder the flood remembers you. Water will always remember you. Ain't that something?
Woo. Yeah.
I need to keep these preambles short. This one, the only preamble necessary for those of us who are heathens in the room, and I'm one. In the Bible, in the book of Ezekiel, Ezekiel has a vision. He sees himself standing in a valley filled with the bones of many people. The bones had been there a long time. And God asks Ezekiel, can these bones live? To which Ezekiel replied, Lord God, you alone have the answer. This poem is The Victim Remains Anonymous. If the Old Testament means what it says, if women can be stoned but thou shalt not kill, if the only crucifixion that matters is the one 2,000 years ago, if God is God anyhow, if man is in his image and likeness and women a borrowed rib, can these bones live? Should they be returned up from dust and back again, each martyred godless girl unzipped from flesh, ghosting your towns, looking for boys to burn? Shall we show you what reparations look like for Salem? Shall we mispronounce your birth? Shall we trouble the water? Do you know How many burials we've escaped. How anchored we are to resurrection. Are you looking for a way to kill me? Chain me to a fence, throw me in a river, pin me down behind a dumpster, remove panties, rummage my body, ignore the pine needle crown of thorns stitched to my head, dig nails in deeper, claw the pink, chisel away till the girl is gone, the archeology of mice and men. They never get the story right. Pontius or Judas, Nate Parker, Brock Turner, see how you keep your names? Behold the boy who made a mistake. He was a good kid. He was a great student. The monster gets to be human. The woman, a junk pile of bones. Anonymous means invisible, erased, unstoried, unpeopled, untried, unfamilied, unfamiliar, unwritten, undone, unannounced, unexplained, undetermined, unnamed. You never get the story right. I know how to dig a deep grave. I know what bodies to put inside. Should I show you what it means to give the bones back? To die with a boot on your throat? To go namelessly into the deep? Do you mind a little blood, boys? How about a lot? Women go missing. And for some of us, so does God. For that, every prayer is a curse. Okay, next poem. What time I have to be done by so I know how to do this? Okay, got it. Okay. Good. That's good. Okay. Song at the bottom of the boat. Again, this for me felt like an affirmation as much as a reckoning. It's short. And then we'll get into some lengthier stuff and then I'll be done. Yeah. Song at the bottom of the boat. I heard that if you say drowning, mean it. Promise the wind what is left of your bones. Say bones. The erected totems pitched soundlessly in the dark wetlands of your body will want a proper burial. Promise a proper burial. Not premature or heavy, but thick and ceremonious like the way you laughed with friends you eventually buried. The ones whose names dangle from all your unfinished poems. Say danger. And know it is an unremarkable road. A howling place you ruined your dresses in. Say your grandmother's hands. And watch your fledgling song lift out of the grave. An apparition of hymnals and unsuccessful curses. Say childhood and catch each devastation by the throat. Say stepfather until you do not need to say it anymore. Until it is a limp and needless word. Until it is one more thing for you to bury. Say memory and do not run from the meal. Eat what you can. Be full by morning. Say sunrise and spend your flesh on it. Pull the slow tendrils of girlishness from each padlocked room you made a home in. Pirouette the sun if you feel like it. Let the sky be what it is. Soft, persistent halo, ready to turn mistakes to hummingbirds. Say wings. Say amen. Say girl. Say black. Watch the two come together like other resurrected things. Say this. Say, the body is the algebraic precision of prayer. Say God if it suits you and hear your own name echoed back. Oh, sister. Terrible sister. Do you remember what it felt like to be born? To suffer the body for the sake of a dance. Say dance then. Say never again, or say forever, and plant your seeds. Bury your dead. Sing what songs you know. Tell the earth how plural you are, how fertile the soil of your heart. Say heart, dear heart, red, red heart. Has there ever been anything that could keep you from staying here? You doing okay? Okay, sorry. I'm trying to plow through. Okay. This is a masturbation poem, which is in no way as sexy as that sounds. I have to say that, because in the past I say, this is a masturbation poem, people be like, oh! No, not at all, it's devastating. Okay. If you knew my neighborhood in all its contradictions, the ranch-style homes, the manicured gardens, collard greens growing in every yard, next to the alleys, boys got shot in, girls got raped in, and the dumpsters steaming with dead dogs, the bloody carcasses I had to ignore when I dumped the trash. Folk in my neighborhood were bad at burying their dead. The church ladies and pedophiles, the women working double shifts, the blue-collar congregation of backyard hooch and rust-bitten barrels and secrets buried in the bellies of girls. If you lived there, you knew what men to avoid, what yards to stay out of. I learned the landmines. This was home. It took my stepfather dying in his sleep and my best friend's mama being raped in the bedroom directly over my head on a night I slept over before I masturbated for the first time. 12 years old is tricky. You want to play with paper dolls, but wear eyeliner too. I resented my body because it was not my body. It was a language I did not speak in a country I did not know. I was trying to feel what it was like to claim something, to own it for myself for the first time. When I was 4, I belonged to my stepfather. He burglarized my womb same year I learned to read to this day. Opening a book is an invitation to be slaughtered. The more I learned, the more it hurt. I spent 5 years bleeding in a basement. My body was a crime scene. There was always blood on the sheets. When I was 12, and he was dead, there were other men to be afraid of. My best friend's dad, her uncle too. Leo, who killed a puppy in front of me. Leo, who beat his wife and kids. Father Horrigan at school. Gerald across the street, who held me down and shoved his fingers in my panties. 30 years later, he wants to be my friend on Facebook. Miss Susie, who was raped on a night I stayed over. Her 2 girls slept through the whole damn thing. She came and got me. Pale green nightgown torn at the neck, blood in her eye, under her nose, on top of her teeth. Tells me her husband raped her. Says she needs my help destroying the evidence. I'm 12 years old, bathing a woman who was brutalized by the love of her life. I thought marriage spared a woman such insult. I'm learning what farce that is. That's when she says it. Tells me to take possession of my body. Says this is the only way I can avoid being killed. To let what is soft and pink about me know my hands better than any others. The next night in my bed, I stretch midnight out. Marvel in my upflung hips, touch the battered flower between my thighs, suddenly electric, the woman in me announcing herself, levitating witch, fingers slick as paste, Medusa's totemic sister, blessed conjurer, blessed sorceress. When I come for the first time, I hear my own voice, barely above a whisper say, let any man who cannot see your magic turn to stone. this poem requires a little bit of preamble. I wrote this poem, I'm acquainted with violence to the point where I don't have neurotypical responses to violence. That said, I found myself in a rabbit hole on the internet watching a video of a woman being stoned to death in Saudi. She was in a burqa. She was covered the whole time. The video was long. This long, prayer ceremony beforehand, like leading up to the stoning. Then there was the stoning, and then there was a long prayer ceremony that followed the stoning. I watched the whole thing, and I was deeply affected by that. And I knew I would write about it. When I have those big reactions, I just know it'll end up somewhere. But then I was stopped because I felt like I don't want to be complicit in curating language that's very convenient for Americans and those in the West, right? Who take a snapshot of that part of the world and go, oh, they are so brutal over there. You know what I mean? And so I just didn't want to be complicit, so I sat on it, and then I found myself in Baltimore, and I was walking with a group of kids, and they point to this row house, like really kind of just casually, and say, oh yeah, that's where Anisha was gang raped, and then they burned her body in there. They used the stones from the house to try to entomb her in this abandoned row house, and I thought, well, there's the connective tissue right there, right? Can't talk. And I have a 19-year-old daughter who I think about often, because I'm a wolf, but she's not. She's the beneficiary of being raised by a wolf. You didn't have to cultivate that series. You didn't have to cultivate that. I did all that for you, right? But I worry about her walking in the world. So anyway, this poem is Every Stone is Important. If you know who Mary Magdalene is in the Bible, you remember that she was being stoned and then Jesus intervened, right? I'm just, again, for the heathens in the room, Bible references. It's so ironic. I have all these Bible references. I ain't been to church in a year. I don't even know. Okay. Part 1, Saudi. They take her to a place where the rubble already is. Today, decapitation would be a mercy. The strip-mined sky strung hazily overhead, carrion peppered hillsides, vultures hounding the crime scene convert the mountain dead. This bedrock of bones, the pothole graves like eyes plucked out. A gaunt, bare-legged hyena limps over, waits on the promise of a meal. The woman is no one's wife. Curated that ill with an affair, they say. The man received his lashes. Her crime, they say, required the slow surrender of flesh. She's not without revelation. Attends her torture soundlessly, sanctuaried, wonders how long it will take and if she will be remembered. Some people work too hard to be remembered. But would you know Christ without a halo of thorns? And how Jezebel became her name after the dogs fed from her flesh. She is a woman, she is a sinner. I'm being redundant now. An old insult. Extrusive igneous rock sacraments pulled from dust and weaponized. They say that is worship too. What, after all, is holy? Her heart, a blood corsage, unticking now. Every time a stone is thrown, the blue burqa goes purple from the inside. A sudden deluge, plumes from underneath, creates patterns that are almost beautiful. Or maybe that's just what I told myself. Can't see her face, but we know. The massacre underneath, sky blue lace, blue gone purple. Purple is really red, but we won't know it. Her death is a spectacle, but not her dying. No shouting now. This is the part where men wait for a woman to know she's been murdered. That can take a long time. Sometimes there's twitching. I looked at it and called it leaving. The men with stones called it staying. Picking up more rocks, they threw so many. A dust cloud shot up, and for just a second, they couldn't see well enough to keep going. A mercy. Just before the lights go out, I imagine that woman whispering, beckoning, invoking, Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene. But no savior appears. Just a hailstorm of bricks, a concert of contusions, the unmendable flesh, and men wild with the fever of a fresh kill, peering into the junk-heaped body, shouting, God is great. The murder, after all, is scripture. Part 2, Baltimore. Arnisha had a mama who had never really been a mama. In and out of jail since forever, heroin got her, same old story. Arnisha was never really a girl. Can't pull that off anywhere in the world without a blood sacrifice, and Baltimore is gonna make you meet it. But sometimes the day is long in the right way. Fresh patties from the Jamaican spot, radio on playing what sounds like June, nobody's flexing too tough, sunrise does not have a body in it, sunset comes in like it does in other places that don't sizzle so much with war. The girl met a boy who looked like a life. A future even. Away from the broken songs of September, away from the cracked needles, the dope fiends, the denunciation of green and gold, away from the walled city, the daily cruelties that slip in quiet and private as a dream. He looked like someplace. But the streets in West Baltimore don't lie. They lend their darkness to whoever needs it. It's autumn, but it's cold. So it's soon winter anyway. She follows the boy into the house, abandoned now, screens popped loose, boarded windows, kitchen burned out. Inside, 3 other boys who look like no place at all. One says, she'll do just fine. And she knows how it goes. They say girl, but they mean sacrifice. Boys repeat the blunders of their fathers. Her daddy told her once, women ask for what they get. She sees it. They'll run a train, take it around and around the tracks. She'll walk the long way home till she can feel her legs again, till the blood dries out dark as fudge. She knows what happens now. The inevitability of it is what's exhausting. The boys take her and take her. They imitate the house. Vacant, cold, keeping hell, over and over again, a new insult. Hey man, let's make her. Bitch, get on your knees and... She thinks it'll be over soon. I mean, there's nothing left to bleed for. The last boy buttons his jeans, wipes semen and the salt of her off with long, slender fingers dusted gray, looks down at her and says, she saw our faces. She can't live. After that, a crucifixion. Soul uncoupled from flesh. The clumsy slaughter. First, the beating. Hands around the neck. The body jerking away from consciousness. The anguish of girl to ghost. They finally settle on burning. Light a match and watch the flame stretch her skin until it pops. Bad smell, black smoke, somebody might see. Get the stones. The ones the house spit out in its decay. Smother the smolder. Bury the girl. Get the hell out before somebody sees. Nobody's gonna miss her. That's the way it is. West Baltimore knows. We say barbaric, but we mean tradition. Part 3, everywhere. God said, man said, in either case, a woman dies. Women, meet me underground. We are never divided from heaven. We, costumed in frailty. We, impossible. We, miracle. We, dead and gone. We, here and now. We, the leftover sky. We, ancestral and hungry. They, the gun. They, the bullet. We, the wound it leaves. The stones they used could have been cathedrals. This could have been a prayer song. I would have liked it that way. Instead, war. And how I do it. I stare at my daughter every night. I whisper, Mary Matt. Mary Matt. When she wakes, she finds doves on her windowsill and a pile of amputated hands touching stones. I'm almost done. Take a deep breath. Okay. I never know what I'm going to read till I'm in a room. I think what I'm going to do. This is a short one. I read this. Yeah, it's short. Does the name Delitha Ward mean anything? Delitha Ward was driving on a bridge in Detroit. She cut a car with 2 men in it off, but there was a lot of traffic. It was congested on the bridge. So when her car came to a stop, the driver got out and pulled her out of the car, ripped her shirt. She was trying to get away, so she came out of her t-shirt and her bra. Tons of people on the bridge watching as this man who was 6'5", Delitha was 5 feet. He was beating her. She was terrified and trying to get away, and so she leapt off the bridge into the Detroit River. She couldn't swim, and so she died, and all these people watched it happen. No one intervened. They had their camera phones out though, for sure, right? But no one intervened. I think about her often, because I've walked into so many rooms now where I say her name and no one knows who she is. Delitha Ward, DELETHAWARD. There were tons of articles and op-eds written after the fact because people wanted to talk about the bystander effect and all that kind of shit. But no one helped her. She died terribly. She died terrified, knowing also that everyone was bearing witness, you know? So this is a very short one for her. Delitha, finding out about you and the way you died meant to remember the men who came for me, the ones who bludgeoned, the ones who brought monsoons with them, each awful knuckled knowing that makes women go limping into floodwaters to escape the teeth. I don't know the names of those who watched you being destroyed, the ones who did not help, who did not offer their own bodies, the ones who stood still as you leapt from a bridge into the clutching dark of the Detroit River, a river with too many secrets. I've wanted to give them death names, to call for their heads on spikes, their own limp limbs dangling wetly from a midnight bridge, but they are too many to kill, and I know how it happens. How good people don't move when you are stripped and flayed. The fascination of flesh, the way it comes so easily apart. To watch is better than to know, to marvel and to shudder, but not to help or say enough. Lynch parties only form to kill the innocent. They do not know how to insist on a woman's right to the world. We are familiar when we are bleeding, when we are a caterwauling stretch of open-mouthed anguish. Hundreds of people attended my stepfather's funeral, but no one came to mind to weep. I was forced to bury myself. This is the way it happens. The way our dying is tradition. The way the destroyer keeps his teeth. The crowds do not move. How your daughter must hate the sound of shorelines. She must wake up gnashing her teeth. Your mother will raise her to eulogize you right, and she will live for as long as she can, motherless and knowing. Her own death will be somehow familiar. She'll be like the rest of us. She will learn how to bury herself. If she is lucky, there will be no crowd to watch. Okay. I can't be loud for this. Am I not being picked up? Okay. This is the last poem. I will give you the preamble for this. The daughter that I referenced earlier, who is 19, 7 years ago she started her period, and that was amazing. It was a Saturday morning. I was in my room minding my business. Her brothers, when they were in their rooms minding their business, we started to hear chaos in the hallway. I come out, they come out, my daughter is up against the wall, clutching bloody underwear, hyperventilating, no lie, okay. I probably stared for way too long, so did they. We were all just kind of like, what the fuck? We didn't know what the hell's going on. Then I was like, oh right, you're her mother. She needs your help. So I take her in the bathroom. I'm trying to ritualize this. I'm excited for her. She is in no way excited. Okay? I'm explaining to her, first of all, it's Saturday morning. You're at home. That's privilege. You're surrounded by people. Oh shit. You're surrounded by people who love you. Some of us start on Tuesday afternoon in gym class. You know what I'm saying? Privilege. She's not feeling me at all. Okay. So I'm explaining, we're trying to work through the maxi pad thing. I'm showing her, look, yours have wings. That shit haven't even been invented. And then I started my period. Privilege. She's not feeling me. This is where my deficits show up. Because my mother, when I started my period, was like the meditation tape voice. That's her actual voice, though. Like, it's okay. You're okay. Everything is fine. I'm proud of you. Deep breath. I swear. Just so nurturing and calming. I don't have any of that. Okay? I have this, locker room hype man thing. So I'm, trying to chest bump with her. I'm like, yeah, Nigel! That's how you do it, girl! She's not feeling me. So I, get her situated, get her cleaned up, and I'm like, that's it. Now you get on out there and be somebody. Okay. She walked around the house all day devastated. Like funeral procession. It was so ridiculous. To the point where my youngest, who was 4 at the time, came in my bedroom and closed the door and was like, we gotta do something because she is losing it, right? I was like, you're right, we do have to do something. So I threw her a period party. I collectively raised the roof to my daughter's shedding uterus, and it was amazing, okay? I'm growing a feminist. I feel very proud of her progress. And then, in a few months, she sends me a screenshot of a tweet. I was in Texas. And in the tweet, all of the language I was trying to keep her from was there.
Oh.
All the stuff I wanted her to levitate above was there. She wanted me to tweet this person. But at the time, we could only have 140 characters on Twitter, and I was like, I need room. This ain't enough. I can't talk about his mama or nothing. I need room. So I pulled over, and on an Applebee's napkin, I wrote the following poem. This is for my daughter. This is the period poem, one in which quite a few people have been offended, which I think is funny as shit. I really do. I really do. I think it's so amazing and so instructive that if I decide to talk about my vagina, somebody else feels away. Like, how does that work? I'm just saying, I'm not gonna do anything. I already have people mad at me, but I'm just saying, I think that is one of the most ignorant, like real shit. I'm talking about my vagina and my menstrual cycle, and you feel away? So you are angry and upset and ignorant. If you don't pick a struggle, okay, here I go. Here you go. Dude on Twitter said, quote, I was having sex with my girlfriend when she started her period, so I dumped that bitch immediately, end quote. Dear nameless dummy on Twitter, you're the reason. My daughter cried funeral tears when she started her period. The sudden grief she felt after the matriculation from childhood and the induction into a reality that she was going to have to negotiate people like you and your disdain for what a woman's body can do. Herein begins an anatomy lesson infused with feminist politics because I hate you. There is a thing called a uterus. Shocking, I know. It sheds itself every 28 days or so, or in my case, every 23 days. I've always been a rule breaker, but that's the anatomy part. I digress. The feminist politic part is that women know how to let things go. How to let a dying thing leave the body. How to regenerate, how to become new, just waxing and waning, not unlike the moon and tides, both of which influence how you behave, but I digress. Twitter dummy, women have vaginas that can speak to each other. By this I mean, if we're with our friends, our mothers, our sisters, our partners, our menstrual cycles will actually sync the fuck up. My own cervix is mad influential. Everybody I love knows how to lead with me. Hold on to that because there's a metaphor in it. But when your mama carried you, the ocean in her belly is what made you buoyant. Made you possible. You had it under your tongue when you burst through her skin and into cosmic significance, wet and panting from the heat of her body, the body whose machinery you now mock on social media. That body wrapped you in everything that was miraculous about it and sung you lullabies laced in platelets without which you wouldn't have no Twitter account at all. It interrupts our favorite white skirt, shows up at dinner parties, unannounced. Blood will do that, period. It will come when you're not prepared for it. Blood does that, period. Blood is the biggest siren, and we understand that blood misbehaves. It doesn't wait for a hand signal or a welcome sign above the door. And when you deal in blood, over and over again like we do, when it keeps returning to you, that makes you a warrior. And while all good generals know not to discuss battle plans with the enemy. Let me say this to you, dummy, on Twitter. If there is any balance in the universe at all, you will be blessed with daughters. Blessed. Etymologically, blessed means to make bleed. See, now it's a lesson in linguistics. In other words, blood speaks. That's the message, but just stay with me. Your daughters are going to teach you what all men must one day come to know. That women made of moonlight and magic and macabre will make you know the blood. We're going to get it all over the seats, the sheets and car seats. We're going to do that. We're going to introduce you to our insides, period. And if you are as unprepared as we sometimes are, it can get all over you and leave a forever stain. So to my daughter, should anybody mishandle the wild geography of your body, how it rides a red running current, like any good wolf or witch, well, that's when you bleed, boo. Give that blood a biblical name. Something of stone and mortar. Name it after Eve's first rebellion in that garden. Name it after the last little girl to have her genitals mutilated in Kinshasa, and that was this morning. Give it as many syllables as there are unreported rape cases. Name the blood something holy, something mighty, something unlanguageable, something in hieroglyphs, something that sounds like the end of the world, but name it. For the roar between your legs, and for those of us who refuse to be nameless here, you bleed anyhow. Spill your impossible scripture all over the good furniture. Bleed and bleed and bleed on everything he loves. Period.
Let's take 10 minutes and reconvene. See you in a few minutes.